All right, Alexander, let's talk about the spy balloon slash weather balloon, depending on what story you believe. Biden gave an order. He said he gave an order a couple of days back for the military to shoot down the balloon, but the military told Biden that they would prefer to wait for the balloon to be over the Atlantic Ocean before they shoot it down. So in a way, they kind of overruled Biden, it seems, and they shot down the balloon over the Atlantic. Now you have the mainstream media trying to, I think they're trying to run cover for Biden and to make it seem like Biden is, he wasn't overruled by the military. He was just, taking the advice of military officials and weighing all his options. And by the way, Trump had four balloons that, were moving over the U.S. as well. So, if Biden had one, well, Trump had four. So, there you go. And China actually came out with a statement and said they're pretty upset that the U.S. Shot down the balloon. What is your take on Balloon Gate? I don't know. Yeah. What can we call this?
What can
Balloon
we call
Gate?
it? Yeah,
is that a good description?
Well, in Balloon Gate, indeed. This is a farcical affair. Now, I want to just say this. I don't know whether this was a surveillance balloon, a spy balloon, or a weather balloon. I mean, how can I know? How can we know? I've seen lots of people. I've had lots of people writing to me and to us, explaining why it could be either one of these things, and explaining why balloons, are actually quite effective as surveillance tools, and that they can do certain things that satellites can't do, and things of that kind. I'm not going to go there because I don't have the expertise or the knowledge to discuss this. The one thing I will say is the way this whole thing has been handled has not played well for the United States. They could have just shrugged their shoulders and said, okay, it's a balloon. It's flying over our country. It's carrying on surveillance. It's right at the tip of the stratosphere. It is above what is recognized to be, airspace. Fighter jets don't operate at that level of that altitude. Satellites, military satellites, well, they're a couple of thousand miles further up, but, it's a sort of intermediate area. We have sent balloons over other countries. We used to do it over the Soviet Union in the Cold War, and the Soviets were worried about that and did all kinds of things and shot them down from time to time. But, we did that. So they could have shrugged their shoulders and said, this really isn't important. It's no big deal. The Chinese, they do this to us, we do this to them. That's all there is to say. So they could have done that. Instead, what they did is they made this huge, big, hysterical story about this balloon. And they said, well, one moment we're going to shoot it down, next moment we're not going to shoot it down. They do eventually shoot it down. They do so in ways that make Biden look incompetent, because he's supposed to have given an order to shoot it down. The military is supposed to have overruled him. That's not a good call for the President of the United States. And at the same time, by making such a big fuss about this balloon and delaying for so long in shooting it down, and then using this huge apparatus of equipment, F-22 fighters and all the rest, to shoot it down, it looks both disproportionate and, frankly, I think, rather ridiculous. And if you read the Chinese media, which I have been doing, yes, they are pretended angry about this, but they're also mocking the United States. They talk about hysteria there, they talk about grotesque overreactions, they're talking about all of those things. And there is another side, because the Chinese are also saying, well, this is our balloon. It was flying over the United States. It just flew off course. If the United States is prepared to shoot down part of our equipment in this way, well, we reserve the right to do the same. So if presumably American drones reach our territory, or dare one say it, American spy planes, and I have seen commentaries in the Chinese media, in Global Times, for example, that talk about this, well, if the Americans are prepared to shoot down our thing, we are prepared to shoot down theirs. And that would be a very big escalation. So I think that whatever this was, it was very badly handled.
Well, what was this? What do you think it was? I mean,
I'm going to make it.
Here's the deal.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. But just before you answer, the U.S. has picked up the debris of this balloon. I imagine they've picked up the debris.
Yeah.
So they know what this is.
Yeah.
They're not going to tell us what this is, but they know what this is.
Yes. Yes. I'm going to say what I personally think. I don't know whether this was a surveillance balloon or not, but I strongly suspect that the Chinese knew exactly what they were doing. And I think I've seen people who say you can't guide or control balloons as they fly over territories. I'm far from convinced that that's true. After all, China can control how hypersonic missiles move about. I can't believe they can't control how balloons move about. I'm not saying that the two are technologically analogous, but I think the Chinese knew what they were doing. I think they were very, very angry about still angry about Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. They're angry about the visits of other American officials to Taiwan. They're angry with the United States over various ways. So I think they went out to provoke and embarrass the United States. And I think some people in the United States, Biden himself with his order and all that, I think they walked straight into the trap that the Chinese were laying. And notice that Blinken has cancelled his trip to China. And of course, I suspect the Chinese didn't want him to come because what really is there to discuss? Xi Jinping is apparently heading to Moscow in a few weeks. I think that this is basically set up by the Chinese to cause the Americans embarrassment. That's my guess. But you asked me what I think. That is what I think this was. Now, I think the Americans need to learn some lessons from this, which is don't be goaded by stunts like this, because ultimately, if I'm right, this was a stunt. This hasn't materially affected US national security. China can send lots of balloons over the United States, but ultimately they're just balloons. I mean, they're not going to threaten the United States. So, don't be goaded by things like this. The Soviets back in the 60s and 70s, when they had balloons flying over their territory, they didn't even complain about it. They just did things to shoot down those balloons. But as I said, don't make a big song and dance of it again. I think that was exactly the effect the Chinese intended, and it was exactly the effect they got.
If that is the case, then this was the troll of the century.
Well, I think it was. I think you've described it. I think it was a troll. But again, the person who bears the biggest responsibility is, of course, Biden. He is the president of the United States. He should be, knowing how to respond to these sort of things. And you already see comments by the Chinese on the way he's responded to this affair. I'll just quickly go into Global Times. And they say the Wandering Balloon episode, this is China's newspaper, the Wandering Balloon episode shows Biden's lack of crisis management. And they have a photograph underneath of Biden looking, frankly, all over the place and slightly ridiculous. And I can't help but think that was the plan. They've exposed how out of his depth and lacking in skill the president of the United States is.
I don't think they needed a balloon to do that.
Well, they didn't need a balloon to do it, but no, that's true enough. But anyway, I mean,
No, I see what you're getting at. Yeah, I see what you're getting at. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. Wow.
I mean,
All right. We'll leave it
we'll
there.
leave it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, you know, just take some balloon to show off the president of the United States. It's a pretty bizarre story, actually. But as you said, the troll of the age.
It is a bizarre story.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it is the troll. If that is the case, then wow, what a troll that is.
Yeah.
Okay, theduran.locals.com. We are also on Rockfin. And go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.